YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel, bringing you another housing discussion review. Woo! Housing slump bites as Sydney apartments line up for fire sale. What is going on down under? Let's find out, guys. You know, I've been following this for years now. Scores of apartments in multi-million-dollar Sydney complexes will be sold in one line by receivers after project developers fell victim to Australia's property slump. One line, I thought I said online, but one line receivers. In further sign of cracks in the apartment market, and they're not talking about the Opal Tower people, they're talking about cracks in the whole lending standards and all this Mickey Mousing they've been doing, and all these people thinking that they compete with foreign investors and have deep pockets, and well, you know, I make this much money, well, I'm a doctor, I should be able to afford. No, you can't! You're bought out! Move to Hobart, or move to Queensland, move somewhere else affordable. In further sign of cracks of the apartment market, receivers and managers New Point Advisory are selling 61 units in the just completed multi-story Elysee project in Epping, Sydney's northwest. The apartment fire sale follows Sydney and Melbourne being branded as the worst performing housing markets in the country, dragging down the national dwelling of values of 4.8%, CoreLogic's December data shows. You see, something like this in Fort Lauderdale, like a two-bedroom, should be no more than $70,000. And people are paying millions of dollars for those things. Millions! Let's keep going. Guys, this is brought to you by the Sydney Morning Herald. Sydney home values have fallen to the same levels they were in August 2016, and Melbourne's were February 2017. Melbourne had a shorter stint of increase. Sydney has been on fire forever, so that's why it's on a huge decline. The slowdown has seen apartment prices fall 7% in Sydney, 2% in Melbourne. It has also prompted gloomy forecast for analysis that the country's largest real estate developers, Marvick, Landlease, and Stockland, face higher risk of settlements falling over and a hit of their profits because their exposure to projects sold to buyers at the 2017 peak of the property cycle. The property developer behind a 130-unit project in Epping is a little-known outfit called Condo, with links to Chinese developers. Condo sold 69 apartments in the project, marketing as setting new standards in contemporary living. Before the receivers New Point were called in, they are understood to have been appointed by offshore bank based in China. And what's happening, people? Capital outflows from China are not flowing out. Everybody's blaming everybody. This is going to be the great Australian housing blame game. They're going to have the great Canadian housing blame game. Every English-speaking country is going to have the greatest blame game ever. And I've been talking about and forecasting this for years. Why? Because who's going to pay $1.5 million for a condo? Oh, it's in Sydney, but it's got no parking. And you have to pay strata fees out the nose. What are you thinking? A group of lucky Epping homeowners scored more than $26 million in 2016's frothy property market when Condo set about aggregating multiple suburb homes along the Kill Roads, put together a super lot development site. So what they did is a land assembly, what we call in Canada is a land assembly. And land assemblies are very popular, where they buy a pile of houses and then they make these condos, these low-rise condos, and charge you strata. The group's only prior project in Australia was apartment block called the Macquarie in North Ryde. Sales agents international at New Point declined to comment. Median unit prices of Epping have fallen 2.26% over the year, an average of $820,000 according to CoreLogic. A one-bedroom in the Elysee was selling $788,000. Guys watching this in America, this is for a one-bedroom, okay, in Sydney. $788,000. This is not pesos, okay, guys? This is not American dollars, so that's about $703,000. No, that's less. Like $694 American here. Yes, I know you could buy a mansion in South Carolina for that, but a big mansion with 2 pools. I understand that. So, guys, you need to come to grips with that, too, living in the United States. A 2-bedroom unit was going for over $1 million before the project fell over. $1 million for a basic 2-bedroom apartment, guys. Phenomenal. And then you got strata. Woo! Let's keep going. Lending by Australian banks is down 22% from its peak as the Big Four tighten the screws on investors, raising standard variable interest rates and ramping up scrutiny of borrowers' applications. Why are they doing this for all of a sudden? Well, you know, the Royal Commission has been sniffing around and they've been finding all kinds of crap. All kinds of crap the banks have been doing to rip people off just to get these commissions, to get this little plastic or a little bit of money. I'm not sure if Australian money is plastic in their pockets to make them feel good about themselves. But they can sleep well at night knowing they're ripping off everybody around them and selling people basically homes that are realistically worth $200,000-300,000 grand. The country's largest property players face an escalating risk of buyers failing to pay at settlement time because of falling apartment and land prices. Analysts said, "Who's going to want to buy something that's worth less than what it's for? Who's going to slave away and make up that deficit of that loss? What for?" We see Murphic as at most risk, followed by Landlease and Scotland. UBS analysts Grant McCaster and James Duras said apartment sales make up a significant chunk of earnings for Mirvac in particular over the next 3 financial years. In 2020, nearly 1/3 of the group's earnings will come from settlements in Sydney and Melbourne. The most risk projects are in Sydney, Marrickville, and Olympic Park, which appear already out of the money, because Sydney's apartment price index has fallen 5% since the launch, analysts said. Woo! St. Leonard's could also become an issue where prices fall a further 5 to 10%. We are less concerned about Landlease's settlement risk, given the price of growth since 2015-2016 launch dates, Mr. McCaster said to Bruce Day. Yeah, but you have to have bought at the right time. If you bought at the top of the market, you're screwed. But I mean, it still has a little bit to chew away for 15-16 from the 15-16 launch dates. So it's got a little bit of aggregation still to chew away. So I think if prices drop another 5-6%, even if you bought at the right time, you're still going to be underwater. Another major developer, Stockland, has minimal exposure to the apartment market, but is banking on substantial earnings from land sales over new homes. The number of buyers canceling contracts on land purchases is presently low, but the UBS is warning that tightening credits, price falls, incentives, and lower deposits will increase the number of struggling buyers. Mind you, it's getting harder and harder to borrow because the banks aren't going to take the risk anymore. Who's going to take the risk? You know, they're not giving away money for free anymore like they did with this artificially deflated bubble that basically took the wealth out of everyone that had a savings in their account. There has been documented rise in speculative land buyers trying to offload their purchase contracts on Gumtree and other sites, which add to the risks. So a lot of people are trying to sell their pre-builts, and it's happened a lot. I've seen this in Florida. People were trying to sell their place in line for a pre-built. People were even trying to basically give it away for free. Just sign on the dotted line. I'll lose my $10,000 down. We expect Stockland's second half of settlements to disappoint as cancellation rates increase and settlement times extend, UBS says. Property experts believe there is more pain to come for the sector. Yeah, you guys remember pre-builts? Pre-builts are always the first to get. First, it starts with multi-million-dollar, the elite homes. Like the multi-million dollar units start off first, taking the pinch. Then it goes into the pre-builts. And then from the pre-builts, you get into actual physical condos and housing starts to fall. The detached market falls first before the condo market because everyone jumps on the condo market because it's cheaper. It's a cheaper asset to buy than the detached. And then before you know it, the condo market starts to reach the detached pricing and everything starts to go nuts. And then you create this inversion and it looks nuts on paper. This downturn still has some legs to run yet, he said on Tuesday. Sydney and Melbourne remain heavily overvalued despite the price falls that have happened. There is an election just a few months away where negative gearing is at play, and the banks are still being very draconian on providing loans to the market. We think there will be more price declines, he said. And that's it, people. There will be more price declines. What have I been saying for the longest time? You know why they took down the video I did 3.5, I think it was three and a half, almost 4 years ago, when I was telling people in Sydney not to buy, and I was telling people, guys, Sydney's going to go for a big ride. I live here in Vancouver. Since the 2010 Olympics, it's been a nightmare here. Prices have been taken off, and affordability has been out the window, and it's been so many years I've been talking about this. And then I started talking about Sydney 3-4 years ago, Sydney mortgage prison, and then it's Sydney's powder keg. When is it going to blow up? And then now, for the people that do own on a sinking ship, it's called, I think I'm going to call it, I was going to call it Sydney's home, what do you call it when you're Sydney's house arrest. You can't get out. But, I think I'm going to call it Sydney, the Great what sank? The Great Titanic, the Sydney Titanic. The Titanic housing market is sinking. I don't know. I gotta think it over a bit. Anyways, guys, if you're living in Sydney, let me know. Comment below if you want to be on my show. Let me know if you want to be on Skype. I'll be live tonight on my backup channel on trends in the housing market. My channel did get flagged for live streaming because I was talking about the Sydney housing market. Let me know what you guys think. Woo! Comment below, and thanks for watching.